Hey everyone, it's Colin. How's it going? I've gotten good use out of my Behringer Europort portable PA speaker since I did a review on it a while back. And one of the things that I've added to the system since then is a handheld wireless mic. Of course, the reason why I bought that speaker to begin with is because of its built-in battery pack. I don't have to be tethered to mains power when using it. But unfortunately, most wireless systems require mains power. They don't have any sort of battery option. And that includes the one that I bought. I've thought of a couple of different ways to address this, and I figured they'd be worth sharing. Now you might be asking, why didn't I just buy Behringer's own wireless mic system? Well, there's a couple of different reasons. While it's awfully convenient for the receiver to be able to just plug into that USB port on the back of the speaker, that's also a very proprietary system. I can't just take that wireless mic and use it with any other PA that I may need to in the future. The other reason is that, well, reading the reviews on that system reveal it to be pretty lackluster in quality. For the same amount of money that I would have spent on Behringer's own wireless system, I was able to turn around and go on eBay and pick up a used Shure PG wireless system, which I can use with any PA that I ever need to. Now, my receiver operates off of 12 to 18 volts DC. And I found this information right off of the back panel of the unit. What's also marked is the polarity of the DC connector. The logo indicates that the outside or sleeve is negative and the center pin is positive. Your receiver may vary in these details, so you may need to do some homework. But if your receiver does match this 12 volts DC power and sleeve negative for the polarity, then you're likely going to be in good shape. The quickest and easiest way of taking your wireless receiver off its leash is through the use of one of these. It's called a boost converter. It takes the 5 volts from a regular USB port and bumps it up to the 12 volts that the receiver requires. The other end of the cable terminates with one of those familiar DC barrel jacks to plug right in. These are pretty common on eBay. Just do a search for USB boost converter. I found mine for about 10 bucks. The other piece we'll need is a USB battery pack. These are commonly marketed as being used to recharge cell phones and tablets and other mobile devices on the go, but it'll work just as well for our purposes here. I've got a Sony Cycle Energy unit, but really any USB battery pack will do, provided that it's able to output at least 1 amp of power to its USB port. That 1 amp part is important, and that's the reason also why I can't simply plug that USB boost converter into the USB port on the back of the speaker itself. That port on the speaker is only able to output 500 milliamps, which is not enough power to run the receiver. You're going to want at least 1 amp. But provided that the battery pack you pick has that specification, you should be good to go. Putting it all together is really easy. Simply plug the boost converter into the battery pack and turn it on, and then plug the other end of the cable into the receiver. Of course, the bigger the battery pack, the longer the runtime you should expect. But even with a small battery pack, I would expect at least a couple hours. I'm going to guess that on my battery pack, I should be seeing at least 6 to 8 hours based on its size and the relatively low current draw from my receiver. Now, that solution works great, but it relies on a couple of extra pieces and has another battery pack that you'll need to remember to keep recharged. I wanted to come up with a solution that's a little bit more integral to the speaker itself, something that can be a little more all-in-one. Behind this back panel is a 12 volt lead acid battery. It's got plenty of capacity to run both the speaker and a wireless receiver. We just need to tap into it. I made up this special cable. It's basically the tail end of an old spare AC adapter I no longer needed. I figured out the polarity of the wires in relation to the DC barrel jack, and then crimped on some extra quick connects. This allows us to basically tap into the battery, where it connects between the battery and the circuitry in the speaker. Simply connect this new cable to the battery and then plug the existing wires from the speaker into the extra sockets on the new cable. That way we're able to steal power directly off of the battery to run the receiver while still sending it up to the circuitry to power the speaker. Then it's just a matter of buttoning it all up. I was able to squeeze the wire through the gap in the back panel, but a better, more permanent solution would be to install a panel mount DC jack somewhere on the back of the speaker. And that's something I'll probably end up doing in the future. To keep things compact, I opted to mount the receiver to the back panel of the speaker itself. A couple of tabs of heavy-duty Velcro is more than enough to keep my lightweight receiver in place. To use it, it's simply a matter of snapping it into place and then connecting the audio and DC power cables. I decided to mount my receiver face down because I usually operate the speaker on a stand, and I figure if I ever needed to check the status on the receiver, that way it would simply be a matter of looking up at it. There are a couple of caveats to this solution though. The first is to remember that the power going to the receiver is going to always be on, since the cable we added isn't controlled by the switch on the back of the speaker. This means that unless your receiver happens to have its own separate power switch, you're going to need to remember to unplug the cable going to the receiver when you're not using it to keep from running down the battery in the speaker. The second has to do with mounting the receiver to the speaker. If your receiver has built-in antennas like mine, mounting the receiver vertically is going to decrease the amount of wireless range that you'll get from your transmitter. And that's because you're changing the polarization of the antennas. Receivers like that are meant to be operated horizontally, not vertically. Now, this isn't so much an issue if your receiver has external antennas. You'll simply need to remember to reorient the antennas when you mount the receiver to the back of the speaker so that they're vertical in order to maintain proper polarization. So there you have it, 2 ways to unleash your wireless system from the demands of mains power. I especially like the fact that I can use any wireless system that I want with this. I'm not locked into a proprietary solution. And I can take my wireless system and use it with any powered PA speaker or mixer, just like it was designed to do. So hopefully you find this video educational or at least entertaining. One thing I'd appreciate would be a thumbs up. Those help me out quite a bit. Also, if you haven't already, do consider subscribing. The button is right down there. And as always, thank you all so much for watching.